On display at this exhibit, we actually have the original Kings County map from 1893. This was the map that was approved by the first Board of Supervisors for Kings County, and it shows the layout of the county starting over here on the east side and encompasses the entire portion of the Tulare Lake Basin, and has this long diagonal line that goes all the way out. It starts at Kingsburg and goes all the way out to a boundary tree that is in the foothills of the Avenel Range. This map is very useful in determining what existed at the time that the county started. It also showed the actual size of the lake at that time, which was about less than half of its normal size. The lake would have extended down into Kern County and come back up this way right here. When Kings County was attempted to be formed, there was a lot of political infighting between the residents of Western Tulare County and Eastern Tulare County regarding the actual formation of the county. There were several attempts made at the state legislature which were defeated by the Eastern Tulare County residents to prevent the split off of the Western Tulare County into its own county. It wasn't only until the residents of Northern Fresno County joined forces with the residents of Western Tulare County to create two new counties at the same time, Madera County and Kings County. At the time that the county was being formed, there were attempts to prevent Hanford from becoming the county seat. And there was a provision put into the law that said that the city could not be closer than 7 miles to any boundary within the county. If it was that way, then it was eliminated from being able to become the county seat. So the proponents of Kings County went out and moved the boundary lines 2 miles to the east to create this little notch so that Hanford would be more than 7 miles away from the county line and therefore could become the county seat. There were a lot of political battles within the county as to where the county seat should be. Lemoore really wanted to become the county seat, but they lost out. And of all the major communities that voted for the county, Lemoore was the only one that voted no for the creation of Kings County. Over here, we have a modern map of Kings County. And if you'll notice, there's a major change in the boundaries here. We still have this little notch that extends off on the east side. But if you'll note that whereas the old map has a complete straight diagonal, this one has a boundary change. And this happened in 1909. What the problem was that when this boundary originally went through here, the people that lived in this area were isolated many times during the year by the runoff of the Kings River. It prevented them from being able to easily travel between this area into Fresno to do any sort of official business with the county. And therefore, in 1909, these residents petitioned the state legislature to modify the boundary to encompass this part into Kings County so that they would not have to deal with the crossing of the Kings River during the flood season. So that's why you see this little change in the boundary. This was the last boundary change made in California, and it was done in 1909. In our exhibit, we have an original official Kings County map from 1913. This map shows at the time the extent of the county. If you were able to get close, many of the parcels of the land are identified as owners on the property. And the most interesting thing about this map shows the actual basin of the Tulare Lake in the middle. At the time that this map was made, the lake did not exist. It was dry for this time, but you can see the concentric rings showing it was like a very large and wide but very shallow lake that existed out in the bottom of the Kings County. What we also show is the different boundaries for the different boards of supervisors, and it's an excellent example of what the county looked like in terms of its development 120 years ago, 110 years ago. In the exhibit, we have a couple of interesting maps and a couple of interesting photos to describe what was going on with Tulare Lake 150 years ago. At the top is a newspaper article that came from the San Francisco Call from August 14th, 1898, describing the fact that the Tulare Lake dried up in that year. That was the first time the Tulare Lake dried up in at least 100,000 years, which is quite impressive when you think about the fact that lake lasted that long. Below that is an 1867 map of Tulare County showing the actual size of the Tulare Lake at that time, which was about 30 miles long and 20 miles wide. So it was 600 square miles of water. Below that, you see several different pictures. On the left is the only known photo of the entire rolling stock for the Kings Lakeshore Railroad, which ran from Corcoran 18 miles south to the headquarters of Liberty Farms. And what you see there is the four rolling stock that existed for the railroad at that time: the caboose, the steam engine with its oil boiler, and a rail car, a box car. Next to that are two very important images. The top one was taken in 1915, and that was the first attempt to mechanically try to move water out from the Tulare Lake Basin. It used a caterpillar with a leather strap onto a large rotating wheel, using the same technology that the Egyptians tried to use to move water from the Nile into irrigation fields next to the Nile. It was a failure. 2 years later, in 1917, electric pumps were brought in, and these pumps were placed on the levees of the Tulare Lake, and they were used successfully to drain portions of the Tulare Lake to make the bottoms of the lake available for farming. Part of our exhibit shows a map and a plat book of the Laguna de Tachi land grant. This was the only Mexican land grant that was perfected within the Central Valley of California, and that was perfected back in 1843 to a man by the name of Manuel de Jesus Castro. It was 49,000 acres, and it extended from the city of Kingsburg and followed the north side of the Kings River all the way out past Lemoore and even past the Riverdale area. This was a very important land grant. It had superb water rights at the time, and in the late 1880s, the Lillis family acquired the portions of this land grant and sold a portion of the water rights to the Fresno Irrigation District. And that sale to water rights to the Fresno Irrigation District allowed for western Fresno County to be agriculturally improved over the time frame since then. In the exhibit, we have a 1901 map of the Kings River showing the canals diverting water and the location and area of lands irrigated in California. And this is a very, very important map because it shows just why Tulare Lake disappeared. Up here would be where Pine Flat Dam is situated now. That was built in the late 1940s and completed in 1952. In 1901, the Kings River was a wild river which ran from Piedra and flowed down through the Central Valley all the way out to the bottom of Tulare Lake. Each one of these orange lines represents a canal which was drawing water from the Kings River and moving water through Fresno County, past Fresno County, out to the west side of Fresno County, showing all the different tracts that were being irrigated from water being moved from the Kings River. Also from the south side, we have the 76th Canal, which brought water into the Reedley, Dinuba, Munson area, all the way down to Traver. This was all a very important agriculturally developed properties at the time. And then we have also along the Kings River, all the different irrigation districts and canals that were used to divert water from the Kings River out to outlying areas. In here, you'll see the outline of the Laguna de Tachi land grant. And this is why the Tulare Lake dried up, was all this water that would normally flow into the Tulare Lake was being moved into areas outside of the normal drainage basin of Kings River into other farmlands which created the agricultural dynasty and the agricultural wealth that exists in the valley today. We were very fortunate to be able to get access to a photo album from one of the daughters of one of the original farmers of the Tulare Lake Basin. And in that photo album are the only known photos of many of the dredges that floated along the Tulare Lake. There were 5 at the time, and they're identified here. This is the El Rico dredge number 5. This is the Cahuilla dredge. And this is also another view of the Cahuilla dredge. Around over here, we have the Elmer Von Glahn dredge that sits here. We have the Eagle dredge, and then we have the Virginia dredge. And each one of these dredges went around on Tulare Lake, and they were able to dig soil up from the bottom to create levees. And once the levee was enclosed in a certain area, then they brought in the pumps to pump the water out of those enclosed areas to allow the land at the bottom of that enclosed area to be farmed. One of the earliest large farming operations that existed on the Tulare Lake Basin was Von Glahn and Turner. And they ran a harvester pulled by a caterpillar out on the bottom of the Tulare Lake Basin. This picture was taken in 1914. And the amount of production that came off of this particular year in wheat was so enormous that the federal government came in and said, "What are you guys doing? Please do it some more." Von Glahn was an early settler here. We have some great pictures of him. We show him and his wife. His wife was the sister of his partner, which was William F. Turner. William F. Turner's daughter is still alive. She's in her 90s, and she has the photo albums in which all the photos that show early farming came from. And we are infinitely thankful that she allowed us the opportunity to get to that. In all the photos that were in that album, in my opinion, this was my favorite, because this just shows the scale of the operation. This is Elmer Von Glahn in the late 1930s holding a stick, which has his hat stuck at the top of the stick, and it shows the water line that existed in the Tulare Lake years prior. This part has been drained out, and farming has commenced behind them. And this just goes to show this was probably the average depth of the lake at that time, which is between 15 and 18 feet. We are extremely thankful that the family of Myron Dutra allowed us to utilize many of the artifacts that they had in their private collection in this particular exhibit. The Dutra family came to this area in the 1870s, 1880s, and settled in property northeast of Hanford, in which the property is still in the family's name today. And we have different images of the family and discussing their family history. And it's a great, we cannot thank them enough. They made this exhibit what it is today. On this wall, we have several photos that show the actual construction of the diversion projects that affected the Kings River. From the top here, number 1, that was the construction of the People's Ditch Weir, which was just southwest of Riverland near Kingsburg. And it's a great shot showing the formation of the forms in which they were going to pour concrete to create the weir. The one below this is the construction in the 1920s of the large levee that ran south of Stratford all the way out to Utica Avenue. And as you can see the levee is surrounding a particular basin in which this would be farmed. Number 3, this shows a steam-powered dredge that was operating just east of Burst Park along People's Ditch. And this is a unique photo because it shows the size and scale of the type of equipment that was used to create ditches at that time. I'm not going to count the number of people there, but if you look behind the 4 women, you'll see a series of men all standing and positioning themselves along that dredge. There are at least 15 men operating this dredge at this time. Below this here, This is this weir after completion in the 1920s, showing how the water would be backed up so that it could be forced down canals outside the normal drainage basin of the Kings River. Number 5 and number 6, these are photos that I was able to acquire that show the construction of Pine Flat Dam. Number 5 shows the construction partway through. They have a gap in that dam to allow for water to flow around as it was being constructed. And in number 6, this was the official groundbreaking or the commencement ceremony of the dam after completion. And we learned that one of our benefactors for our museum was a little girl somewhere in this audience here. The flag on the dam was one of the largest American flags to exist in the world at that time. When we were going through the Burst Park archives, we came across a stack of over 40 glass negatives that had never been published before. And we were thrilled that the Burst Park Museum gave us the permission to have them as part of our display. And so we selected 7 of what we considered to be the best of the images, showing different views of agriculture within Kings County at the time. We have a wonderful picture of a milkmaid, we have an artesian well, we have the lifting of hay into a haystack, the harvesting of honey. You can see the honey being poured off of here. This was a parade that went in Corcoran to describe or to celebrate the land of plenty. This was a grain warehouse in Corcoran at the time, and this is a picture of some workers with their children picking fruit somewhere in Kings County.